Every year, a small number of faculty members are nominated and confirmed by the Board of Trustees for the designation of emeritus. This year, 20 members of the faculty have been given that honor, and it is my privilege now to say a few words of grateful thanks to them on behalf of the university. This year's class of emeritus professors has invested some 350 years in the collective enterprise of educating students, a term of years which is nearly twice as long as the university itself has existed. They span the disciplines from operations research to pediatrics. They have displayed professionalism, integrity, conscience, and they have enhanced the university. On behalf of the students who were enriched by their wisdom, the colleagues who were served by their scholarship, and the administration which was supported by their loyalty, I thank them. The faculty members who received emeritus this year are the following. From the Columbian College of Arts and Sciences, Robert Dunn, Professor of Economics; Michael Harmon, Professor of Public Policy and Public Administration; Honey Nashman, Associate Professor of Sociology and Human Services; Judith Plotz, Professor of English; Lee Siegelman, Professor of Political Science; and Harry Watson, Professor of Economics. And from the law school, Tom Dinas, Lyle T. Albertson, Professor of Law, and Carol Itsumi, Professor of Law. From the School of Engineering and Applied Science, Gideon Frieder, the A. James Clark Professor of Engineering and Applied Science; Roger Kaufman, Professor of Engineering; and Richard Solon, Professor of Operations Research. From the School of Medicine and Health Sciences, A. Barry Bellman, Professor of Urology and Pediatrics; David Davis, Professor of Radiology; Kenneth Goldstein, Clinical Professor of Medicine; David Goodenough, Professor of Radiology; Sam Goodman, Clinical Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences; and Gilbert Herrer, Professor of Pediatrics. From the Graduate School of Education and Human Development, Marion Jarrett, Associate Professor of Special Education. At the university professor level, James Rosenau, University Professor of International Affairs. Congratulations to this whole class of emeriti faculty. It is now my pleasure to call upon Dr. John F. Williams, Jr.
The Oscar and Shoshana Trachtenberg Prizes in Teaching, in Scholarship, and in University Service were endowed personally by President Emeritus Stephen Joel Trachtenberg in 1990 to honor the memory of his parents. This year's Oscar and Shoshana Trachtenberg Prize in Teaching is awarded to Bruce Dixon, Professor of Political Science. The Oscar and Shoshana Trachtenberg Prize in Scholarship recognizes faculty conducting important original research. The prize this year goes to John Lakeen, Professor of Epidemiology and Biostatistics. The Oscar and Shoshana Trachtenberg Prize in University Service goes to a faculty member who has worked tirelessly to further the best interests of the university. This year, the prize goes to Honey Nashman, Associate Professor of Human Services and Sociology. Congratulations to the winners of the Oscar and Shoshana Trachtenberg Prizes.
I would now like to recognize this year's recipients of the George Washington Awards, the highest honor bestowed by the university for special contributions to the quality of life on campus. These awards were created in 1976 and are conferred on those members of the George Washington community whose accomplishments have had a significant effect on our institution and whose service has far exceeded that which is usual or expected. This year's awardees are Larry Greenberg, Clinical Professor of Pediatrics. Brian Hawthorne, President of the GW Veterans Organization. Rochelle Heller, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs and Director of the Women's Leadership Program at the Mount Vernon campus. And Judith Plotz, Professor of English. Ladies and gentlemen, the George Washington Award winners. The Manat-Trachtenberg Prize, established in 2004 by Chairman Emeritus Charles Manat and President Emeritus Stephen Joel Trachtenberg, honors a graduating senior who has significantly challenged the social and intellectual conscience of the George Washington University. This year's winner is Amanda Jo Formica. And it is now my privilege to introduce our student speaker, Zoe Petkanis. Ms. Petkanis receives her bachelor's degree today from the Elliott School of International Affairs with a concentration in the Middle East and a minor in political science. She's the second member of her family to graduate from George Washington, following her brother, who graduated in 2007. In a month, she will head to Muscat, Oman, where, on a State Department critical language scholarship, she plans to learn a year's worth of Arabic in 2 months. Ladies and gentlemen, our student speaker, Zoe Petkanis.
It was September 2006, and on the way to my first college class, I somehow ended up on Pennsylvania Avenue watching the presidential motorcade roar past. And at that moment, I knew that GW was not going to be a typical college experience. And it hasn't been. At GW, we walk out of class and we see the State Department. We intern on Capitol Hill, and we have professors who supplement their lectures with eyewitness accounts. We saw Madeleine Albright and Colin Powell battle it out over foreign policy, and we heard Vice President Joe Biden talk about women in sports in our athletic center. We gathered together in front of the White House when President Barack Obama was elected. And we froze together on the Mall as we watched him take the oath of office. And now look at where we're graduating. With or without a presidential motorcade on the first day of school, our experiences here have by no means been typical. We joke about entering the real world after graduation, but the thing is, we've been in the real world since the day we got here. Last year, in a class for a professor who took advantage of that overlap between the real world and GW, I was sent to interview a prominent human rights advocate for a final paper. Giving me advice for the future, he said, "Find something that motivates you and pursue it with passion. No matter what it is, act with passion. And when that stops motivating you, find something else that does." My 4 years here led me to find my motivation and taught me how to act on it with passion. GW gave me the confidence, support, and funding to carry out research on women's empowerment and microfinance in Jordan after my semester abroad.